Joining me now is our team of reporters, NBC News Supreme Court reporter Lawrence Hurley, NBC News Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley, and NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli. So, Lawrence, let's start with you. This did catch some of us a bit by surprise because the court yesterday said that they were going to keep this in place for an indefinite amount of time. As we're learning, that indefinite is certainly up to the discretion of the person who declares it as such. It does seem like a bit of a 180. Explain what happened over the past 24 hours.
What seemed possible here, because we can't know for sure, but what seems possible is that the court was close to issuing this decision yesterday. But because Justice Alito had issued a temporary stay before that was expiring last evening, they hadn't obviously reached the outcome that they wanted to, so they just extended it a bit further, gave them a bit more time to think about it, to finish all these opinions, because there's 3 different opinions by different justices. Clearly, the Liberals wanted to dissent, to make their feelings known. Justice Amy Coney Barrett wrote a separate opinion to sort of explain what she was thinking. So, you know, they all wanted to get their opinions out there, and that's probably why it ended up being delayed a bit. All
right, Lawrence, we'll talk more about the decision here, but I want to go to Julia now and talk about what this means most immediately for the situation at the border. I mean, is Texas prepared to begin enforcing this immediately? And do they have the capacity and resources to implement a law like this?
I think they're going to have to start to put their money where their mouth is now, Ryan, because this is an enormous undertaking to be able to train not just local law enforcement on how to decide who to arrest. Remember, it's anyone they suspect is in the country illegally in a state where 40% of the residents are Latino. So already they could be violating civil rights with that. And we've heard from very loudly from national groups who are worried about that, but also just capacity. If you think about some of these really small rural parts of Texas already with full jails, already trying to figure out how to use their limited dollars, how are they supposed to allocate resources to enforce this law when they have to start checking the immigration status of people at traffic stops and making arrests and violations? And then further down that road, think about judges who are not trained in immigration law. Immigration law has always squared completely within the hands of the Justice Department, who appoint immigration judges who decide whether or not someone can stay in the country or not. Now you have people without any kind of that training, without the understanding of really complex asylum bars and who qualifies and who doesn't and what kind of rights somebody might have. Now those people are making decisions on who can stay in the country and who can't. And they're not prioritizing people who might be, say, recently arrived versus someone who's been here for years and has generations of family here, just merely if they're undocumented. So really, this could sow, as the White House is saying, chaos and confusion. And it really is quite shocking to see the reasoning, and Lawrence can get into this more, from the justices today, the conservative justices who put forward this opinion saying that it's because they wanted to minimize harm. It's hard to see how that argument stands when they're going to allow this to go into effect even for a temporary period. It could very well, though, be, Ryan, that Texas can't ramp up their resources in time for whatever temporary period this would be allowed. So we really need to pay close attention to what's happening in Texas in the coming days. But as we know, the governor and the attorney general there see this as a big win, and they're willing to put this in place as soon as they can.
So, Lawrence, expand on that a little bit so our viewers kind of understand and maybe are not fully clued in on the trajectory of this bill through the court system. The Supreme Court is not weighing in on the merits of this at all. They're just talking about whether or not the stay should be put in place. Where does the bill actually sit right? I guess it's a law. Where does the law sit right now in terms of its trajectory through the court system? And could it eventually be something the Supreme Court weighs in on?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, there could be action really soon, and this case could get up back at the Supreme Court really quickly as well, because an appeals court, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, is currently considering the Biden administration's effort to put this law on hold separately. And that was the reasoning that Justice Barrett, and joined by Justice Brett Kavanaugh, said, well, we don't want to intervene at this point because this appeals court hasn't weighed in yet. And so if the appeals court blocked the law, then the law would be blocked all over again. If the appeals court doesn't block the law, then the Biden administration can come straight back to the Supreme Court, which Justice Barrett said they would be, fine to do. So everything on the ground could change really quickly, which is kind of interesting because, the liberal justices are obviously saying this sows chaos. A couple of weeks ago, when the Supreme Court said it would keep Donald Trump on the ballot in Colorado, one of their reasons for saying that was because they didn't want to unleash chaos. So, you could see a bit of a contradiction there.
Yeah, so let's go to the White House now and get their reaction to all of this. Mike Memoli, Do they view this as a setback? I mean, what is the next course of action for the Biden administration as it relates to this ruling?
Well, I think from the White House's perspective, they know that there is still more to come on this issue. You have to have that hearing in the appeals court level before it might potentially then return back to the Supreme Court. In the meantime, I think you can look at this from the lens of both politics and policy. I don't think it's an accident that the statement that you already read partially from Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, reacting to this, calling this sowing chaos and confusion. It's not a mistake that echoes the exact language we have in the very strong dissent from Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, because as the president has pointed out, and we remember so clearly that off-script moment he had at the State of the Union address where he referenced directly the Supreme Court and disagreeing with some of their previous decisions. This is going to be another one. The president likes to say Justice Jackson is smarter than the rest of the justices, and I think they will amplify her dissent here, especially as we move forward. The other part of this, I think, is highlighting the campaign moving forward two different pieces. One is, where is the president right now? He's out on the West Coast. He's in Nevada right now. He's heading to Arizona later tonight, two states where the Latino vote is going to be critical. The campaign is launching Latinos Cone Biden today. So this is obviously an issue, immigration, that they want to basically run on and turn back on the Republicans, especially using the failure of that Senate compromise in the House as an ammunition to point out that Republicans only want the political fight, not necessarily the solution that's involved, but also to underscore the fact that the Supreme Court itself is a voting issue for so many Americans. We think about it most clearly in terms of reproductive rights, abortion, and the Dobbs decision, but this is another thing that they hope will animate Democratic voters in the fall as well, recognizing the importance of the Supreme Court here and the fact that the Supreme Court just over a decade ago made a contradictory ruling on a different bill in a different state, by the way, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And Julia, I know the politics of all of this is not necessarily your lane, but let's see if I can frame this question in a way that you can understand where I'm thinking here. To Mike's point, it does seem as though the Biden administration is setting things up here, right? This, to a certain extent now, is going to give Greg Abbott the tools that he claims will give him the ability to try and calm things down at the border. But to your point, it's not an easy task. It's obviously been very difficult for the federal government. Isn't there the possibility that this backfires on Texas now that they have this ability to at least enforce it on some level?
Yeah, I see where you're going with this. It's like, okay, if you want this to be your problem, take it on. Let's show us what you can do, and you'll see how hard this problem really can be. I think it's apples and oranges too, because as we've seen, as Texas has put through some of these tougher restrictions like razor wire, like buoys in the Rio Grande, we have seen more migrants go to places like Arizona and California. So they're not in charge of a national border. The other thing is, if they were really going to take on the charge of deportation, that's incredibly difficult for these judges to be able to issue deportation orders. I think that's another challenge to this legally, of whether or not they have that authority. And then also, what do you do about countries like Venezuela who refuse to take their migrants back? These are the realities that this administration has been dealing with, realities that really the Trump administration didn't have, because you didn't have this influx from Venezuela just 4 years ago. And so, yes, again, it's a matter of, okay, let's see how you would actually take this on. I think the problem is that this law really isn't created to try to take numbers down at the border. It probably will do much more to just instill fear of people who've been living in Texas for a very long time.
Okay, more to come on this. This is obviously not the end of this discussion by any stretch. Lawrence, Julia, Mike, thank you all for being here. We appreciate it, especially as we're dealing with this breaking news.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.